Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Ready?
Yep. Let's go. Let's laugh. We are imperfect after all.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to the Imperfect Us Podcast.
I'm Leanne Camilleri.
And I'm Lisa Downs. As hosts of the Imperfect Us Podcast, we share relatable stories that celebrate we are all perfectly imperfect humans, leading perfectly imperfect lives. We discover practical and evidence-based strategies that draw on the science of well-being and positive psychology that help us to uncover the barriers that might hold us back from being our authentic selves and turn them into opportunities so that we can show up more consistently, doing what we really aspire to do and who we want to be.
We acknowledge the Wadawurrung and the Kaurna people as traditional custodians of the beautiful lands on which this podcast is being recorded. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend this respect to other First Nations people who are here with us today. So, let's get started. Today we're talking to Dr. Sherry Majd, an accomplished neuroscientist, university lecturer and associate professor with over 2 decades of expertise in neuroscience, human physiology and psychology. Dr. Majd's research focuses on oxidative stress in brain aging, Alzheimer's disease and stroke. Along with her research on the brain, Dr. Majd's passion is to integrate cutting-edge scientific insights to harness the brain's transformative potential, creating lasting positive mental change and empowering individuals and organisations to reach their utmost potential through the application of science-backed knowledge. This topic is really sparking my curiosity. I can't wait to learn more. So let's dive on in. Sherry, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you guys and in your insightful, amazing podcast.
I'm really excited to talk to you and learn from you today. Sherry, many workplaces these days are teaching their people about neuroscience. Why do you think that might be?
Actually, that's a very good question, and you're perfectly right. So workplaces actually started teaching neuroscience and psychology as a part of their initiatives to the teams, and that's a very good step toward having the more creative and, I can say in one simple word, more happy or happier environment. So when you teach neuroscience in workplace, actually you teach your team how the brain works in a work environment, for instance. And when you teach the people get to know that if they are having some behaviors or they are requested to have some particular behaviors or tasks done in the workplace, they understand what is happening actually inside their brains. Generally speaking, when as human beings, when we know the reason of something happening, we can change it for good in a better motivated way. For example, if you in workplace specifically, if you know how the brain works during stressful situations, which I can tell you happen a lot in work environment, then you have the definitely better ability to work on that situation. So, for example, during the times that you need to do a task or a team needs to do a task, if you make them more familiar with the mechanisms of the stress or the emotion or the different functionality that happens inside the brain, then you can find that if I want to control the stress, if I want to work better under this kind of pressure, I have to work in this part of my brain. I can give you one practical example. So we have all heard about brainstorming. And we know that is a very important thing in the work environment when a team actually, each member of the team comes with one particular idea and they discuss this idea. And then at the end of the day, they end up with one good initiatives or agreement. And then they can develop a guideline or develop something more effective for that environment. That brainstorming is a very good, gets to process the information in different ways. So as a leader, if I teach my team in my workplace how the brain works when you do brainstorming, that means that I'm teaching them that if you have an idea, you're allowed to bring it to the work environment because now your brain can get the benefit of the experience of somebody else's thoughts and somebody else's idea, and then you can put them all together. And this way we have more creative work environment. So that works on the other aspects of working. For example, misunderstandings that happen a lot in work environment when you are in a team, and you can avoid them if you can teach that psychology part, or that, I guess, a neuroscience part of the brain to people. That people start, when something happens, people start thinking about the behavior of the work, a team or a person in the team. People start thinking about the reason that person in the team is behaving like this, rather than just assuming this. So they start supporting the other more when they are getting more familiar with the reason that this behavior is going to happen. So they don't just think that particular thing as a personal thing. They think, okay, that is happening because maybe this brain is under pressure, this brain is under something else. That team works, by the time the team working is going to be improved, you have more creative environment, or you have environment with less misunderstanding, you have an environment which is happier. So you have a very happy and productive work environment. That's why it's important to actually bring this particular part of the science to the team, so they can understand what is actually happening inside the brain when they are facing a challenge in the work environment.
As you were talking that through, I was thinking about that name it to tame it kind of mentality. Because if you are in an environment, a stressful environment, for example, and there's certain things happen, we might see other people's behaviors as perhaps a threat to us, or themselves might be feeling threatened by certain scenarios, and that can make us behave in a certain way, can't it?
Exactly. Yes, that's totally true. That's you just bring it to a very good, informative, and simple way. Exactly. So what is happening in the work environment? We are working with a team which are not our family members. So we don't have, imagine you go to a new work environment. You don't have any idea of the personality of the other person. And it takes a while. It takes like maybe a couple of even years to know that person. But how do you behave in that work environment before that 2 years? So you cannot just wait like for 2 years to start being nice to the other people. So what is happening is you have to bring that neuroscience and mentality to the workplace in a team, that, okay, this person is doing this behavior, and you're all human. So we can do something different from time to time, and that's totally normal. But if I have that mentality of, if my brain is acting because of this, and in this situation, maybe all the brains act like this. If it was me, I would have done the same thing. So I don't take it personally. Rather than personally, I think about it as a behavior of the brain, which is going to happen during this situation. And then when I have this understanding, I realize, all right, that's the reaction of the brain to this particular situation, this particular challenge. So now me as a team member, I can be supportive, I can be understandable, and I can support the whole team. That is a very good bonding between the team inside a work environment.
Yeah, I love that. And I really love the aspect of when you're in that challenge, being curious and not taking it personally, that we all share that same challenge differently, but we do have that. And having curiosity just helps us to work out, okay, how can I learn from somebody else? Yeah, I love that.
Oh,
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's so valuable.
no
It seems that change is constant these days in everything that's going on around the world. Can you help us and our listeners to understand that really magical ability of our brains rewire and adapt to those challenges that we face?
Yes, actually, our brain has that incredible ability to adapt to different situations, and that's the power of human being. There is one magical word which I'm sure you have heard of it, and this is neuroplasticity. And this is the superpower of the brain. So the moment that we are born till the moment that we leave this planet, we have that ability inside our brain. Neuroplasticity is about adapting to change. Meaning that, so when the brain is facing a challenge, or even not a challenge, just a different circumstance, just a different situation, the brain has this ability to analyze the situation, process the information that it gets from the environment, and eventually react based on that new circumstance and situation, and then develop a new behavior which is actually working the best for us. And this neuroplasticity actually stays for us. It's a very dynamic situation. It stays for us, as I said, like till the moment, till the last moment that we breathe. And that is the power of the human to change their own lives, personal lives, professional lives for good. I can give you a very simple example of neuroplasticity. So imagine that we start learning a new language or playing a new musical instrument, for example. So that is the ability of the brain that's facing this. It is actually a challenge for the brain for good. So a challenge to start learning a new thing. And the challenge to actually making this skill as a routine takes a time. So that means that neuroplasticity doesn't happen overnight. Learning a new skill, learning a new behavior, making a change in our life, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens by practicing, consistency, and just sticking to that change when we are just developing that change. So, for example, if you want to learn playing piano, so you have to go through that change. And this is actually a physical change. The change is not just the word. The change has to happen inside the brain, in the brain tissues. So inside the brain tissue, inside the nervous system, we have around 100 billion cells. And those cells are, I guess, to me, they are the most magical things that the universe created since the beginning, I think. So those neurons, those cells, which we call them neurons, they are connected to each other. That's the way that they work. The job is connecting to each other this way, and then those connections called synapses. And they send through those connections. And the way that we learn a new skill or a new behavior, anything new, is through making connections between the cells. So I can give you an example. Before age 5, and also it happens after age 5, but definitely at younger age, the amount of the connections that a baby, a little kid can make those synapses within a second is 7,000. So within 1 second in the brain of a baby, like at age 3, it makes 7,000 synapses every second. And then the second, this is amazing. It's just like amazing. That's why they learn so fast. When we get to be an adult and grow up, we are not losing that ability at all. So we don't have more numbers than 100 billion cells. We start born with 100 billion, we die with 100 billion if we have a healthy, I'm not talking about Alzheimer's disease or dementia, healthy brain. But we are making more connections. And the job of the brain is, you make more connections, I will be more helpful to you. It's just like a muscle. The muscles, you go to the gym and you make the muscles bigger and you will be one of the, I don't know, Iron Man or something. So this is the job of the brain, to make more connections. This way, the brain will be stronger, more efficient. So this neuroplasticity is the ability of the brain to adapt to that change. You want to learn a new skill? There is no other way, no easy way, but make those extra connections. And those extra connections, they're part of cells. That means they physically need to be made. The proteins, every element of the cell, they need to be made. So you have to give those cells time to make those connections. That's why it doesn't happen overnight. You cannot be a professional piano player like in 1 week or 2 weeks, right? You need to practice and you make those connections and make them stronger. And more practice, you like practice 2 hours a day playing piano, you get to be fluent in that skill sooner. So more practice, more consistency, that eventually happens. That's the way that your brain gets to adopt and to solve every problem in the world.
I found myself, as we were talking that through, reflecting on my grandson who was born 3 months premature last year. And they're using neuroplasticity because he has a mild cerebral palsy. I think we're seeing the results of that, using different exercises to help him use the other side of his body that he can't use as well. When he does certain things in different ways, he's slowly starting to move that part of the body. And I realize now that's probably a little bit different to what we're talking about today, but at the same time, that beautiful neuroplasticity, that helping us do things in different ways to move forward in whatever we're doing. It's amazing.
Exactly.
Have I understood that right?
Yes, no, what you just said, just perfectly correct. Yes, definitely. And actually, that you actually gave a very good example neuroplasticity is actually a very good tool that we have in our hands, and not just for the health situation you want to develop a skill. It is actually a very critical tool that we have in our hand when we come back from some source of disease or trauma. For example, people who are having a stroke, they can actually use that neuroplasticity through just rehabilitation or physiotherapy. All of those exercises, they are actually tools to encourage the brain to have more neuroplasticity. So what is happening is, for example, during a stroke, when a part of the brain is damaged, and I can say that part is destroyed, a little bit of it. So the areas around it, if you go through those exercises, the areas around it, they start to grow their connections stronger. They want to take over the function of that part already damaged. So if that part is damaged, not a problem. Just work on me, and I can give you a stronger part around it, which then after a while you will see the person who has gone through their physiotherapy or through rehabilitation start talking one day after, getting better each day after that rehabilitation. So that is the magic of neuroplasticity. So it is not for health conditions, it's also working very strongly for disease situation, and then very useful. That's actually a magic. It's a magic that many people think that, and that's a very common thing that I have heard like from my students a lot. I cannot do it. Oh, I can do it. I'm not good at this. I'm just not good at this. And it used to upset me at the beginning why they're saying it, but I thought maybe that's because the thing that you have in mind since your childhood, and that's coming from misunderstanding of your parents or your last generation, that you cannot do it. And neuroplasticity is actually a very young area of science. And then now we understand that maybe you can't do it yet, but practice, and then you can do it after a while. Yeah, so it's actually it's a magic. It's the pure magic. I can just, if you go, I'm sure you'll find it if you go to searching for internet, but there are actually videos showing, like fast forward videos showing that the neurons, they're actually finding each other. And they actually, after a while, when you just put it in the fast forward, they find each other. They start growing hands to each other. They start hugging each other. As simple as this. So they are so dynamic, so active. We just need to use them. If we don't use them, they cannot work for us. We have to use them. We have to force them, push them to create neuroplasticity, and that's all we do.
Sherry, I would imagine mindset has a part to play here in that ability to strengthen that part of the brain. Is that the right terminology?
Exactly. Yes, it is correct. Yes, what I like to call mindset is, I pretty much, when I want to explain it, I resemble it to a program, computer program, such as Word, such as Excel. When you want a computer to do a particular task for us, for example, if I want to calculate something, if I want to draw a graph, if I want to type a document, I go and use a particular program, such as Word, for example, if I want to type a text. So I really like to call that mindset same as a program. So when you go to type text, you cannot use another program which is doing something else and drawing a graph. You cannot use Word for statistical analysis. You have to go to SPSS, another software. So those software, each of them is being used for one particular purpose. If you install that software into your computer, then that software will be able to do the particular task that you want that software to do, right? So mindset is the same. Imagine computer is our brain and mindset is the software. So if you want to be good, successful, happy, you cannot use a bad software in your brain. You cannot use a bad mindset. If you want to change your life for good, if you want to learn a new skill, you have to believe that you can learn a new skill. With a fixed mindset, you cannot do that. With a growth mindset, you can do that. A growth mindset is the software that tells you that I can do it. I have that neuroplasticity because I know that I have that neuroplasticity inside my brain. Therefore, I can do it. I need to practice. I need to learn this and that. Eventually, I can do it. That's the good software. I put it in my brain, and then I ask it, okay, now I want to learn playing piano. Fixed mindset is telling me now, you cannot do it. you are born weak and you're a woman, you cannot be an astronaut. You are this, you cannot be this. We have lots of nice women astronauts. Or like different things that back to 200 years ago, women cannot be this, women cannot be that. Or not just about women, about different things that different concepts that we have in our society, right? And then, so that mindset is the way that I choose, I can say, to run my life with. So I prefer to choose a program that works the best for me rather than a program that just makes my computer disabled and I cannot do anything else. So that's the mindset. You actually use a very perfectly nice term for that.
I really love how you refer to it as a program. Sherry, can
Yes.
you help us understand how emotional intelligence enables us to navigate those volatile, uncertain, and constant challenges that we face in our workplaces, and just only our workplaces, in life today? There's so many challenges and change, so much challenge and change before us these days.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And it's just not in the workplace, it's also in personal life. These days we are changing, like this fast changing world, and just the technology, computer, the way that the next generation is using the technology, or the everything is speeding up so fast. So yes, emotional intelligence is a very nice, it's a very young area of psychology, but as you definitely know from the name, this is part of emotion and part of intelligence. In workplace, it's actually very helpful in having a very, I can say, a stable team and work. So what is it about? What is this about? The emotional intelligence is a way that you get the control of riding that wide force of emotion. So the emotion inside the brain, evolutionary, is a very wide force. Like back to, you just say like a million years ago, when we were like very primitive, can say, humans. So that was actually necessary for us because we were facing, like our ancestors, they faced a lot of challenges. They have to survive. They had to fight for their lives. Otherwise, for example, my great dad would have been eaten by a lion, right? So as soon as there was a danger in the environment, that wild force inside the brain, which was the emotion, wild emotion, started to think about survival. So it got angry, it got offensive, it got defensive, different things. Then that was necessary for the survival. But now we are living in civilized community or environment, if I can call it. Hopefully, it was 100% civilized. This is still a way to go. We need to react properly. We need to control that wild force, and that is what intelligence comes to control the emotion. That's why we call it emotional intelligence. So I give you one example at workplace, and again that comes back to that, and I give the example for the workplace because for example, I go to work on Monday morning and I see one of my co-workers looking very tired and very angry and upset, and I ask him to do this job for me and he doesn't, and the first thing that comes to my mind that, oh, why behaving like this, and I say he just because maybe she, but like an example. And then maybe I think he's lazy, or maybe I think take it personally, anything like that. That is that one. I think the other way. And I think this is Monday. Maybe he didn't have a good time during the weekend. Maybe, I don't know, one of his family members was sick. Maybe he had a tough time. Maybe he had different problems. And as I said, we are all human. We are facing different situations. Now, let's think intelligent about this situation. Let's not get angry or upset with him. So let's be supportive. That is controlling. That is, I get the control over my emotions rather than being angry to him, rather than being upset with him, rather than having those negative feelings about that person. I try to control my emotions, and rather than doing those things, I try to be supportive. So I may just walk to him and say, "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" And then you will see that after having that control over your emotions, rather than assuming that he's lazy or he is this and that, I think about maybe not. I consider other options because I'm controlling my emotions. And then 95% of the time, the person comes back to you and start opening up. I had a bad day, this happened to me. And then that person feels supported, feels that he's being understood. He's being valued because somebody else at workplace is caring about him. He's not alone. So what is the reaction of that person? Next time that situation happens to me, as I said, I'm a human. I may have gone through the same situation. He comes and he starts protecting me, supporting me. And imagine in a group of people that happens, that communication, that bonding happens between everything. You feel safe in that environment. You feel you're having some support that you can count on it. Maybe they're not coming to solve your problem, but at least you're not going to add up to your situation, your bad time that you had before. And that makes you feel relieved somehow. That makes you even think better about your personal situation. So that support actually makes again the work environment very more professional, but at the same time very safe, very happy. So and that's what you really want from a working. What else do you want from work? And that's it. Happy, safe, and then you can be more motivated to even perform even better, especially when you get married after 20 years. I'm not married, but I've seen it lots of times. And then wife to husband, they start after 20 they start ignoring each other's feeling. And this is the thing that they call that we are now comfortable. The first couple of years they were listening, but after 20 years they're just ignoring each other's feeling. And that is the actual emotion, but they bring intelligence to that emotion. And then it starts to when that person is not in the mood, rather than he is like this all the time or she is like this all the time, just think about it, because behind every behavior there is a reason that person is doing that behavior. Not try to understand it. Try to put yourself in the shoes of the other person, just a little bit. And I make you assure 95% you get the reason of that behavior. Because as I said, we all human beings, our brain is very smart. As soon as we see that one, we can, that's because of this. I think he's having a tough time because of this. Maybe my husband is having this situation because of this, because of that. And now put that intelligence over the emotion. Go talk to him. See what is happening, right? Rather than assuming, that is happening. So in relationship, that's very important, same as the professional work environments.
Oh, Cherie, I really love that. And I work in education as well. And I think what I really took from what you were saying then is having the emotion, but the intelligence there, and using that mindset, it really in a way of using the intelligence to understand that. And then it brings a lot more perspective to be able to make those choices as to how you respond. I just think that's fantastic. So thank you. As agents of positive change, how might we use neuroscience to influence and support others?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I want to start with supporting ourselves. So you cannot support the other people unless you start learning and practicing neuroplasticity on yourself. Because when you see the results in yourself happening, then that gives you the better idea and better tool and basically arm you with that knowledge and that practically to help the others. So start from ourselves. Start to make the change from ourselves. For example, if I want to support somebody, I give you one example, which unfortunately is very relevant to Australian situation. I'm very sorry to say that, but gambling. Because I've been studying gambling for a while, and I want to help a family member who is gambling, right? Gambling is actually gambling or any type of addiction, it has a very fascinating circuit inside the brain. It's all about the reward. It's not just gambling, addiction to anything that you can name it, anything. So it has a reward system inside the brain. And when you're doing that destructive behavior, gambling or anything else, the reward system is so active. For example, I don't know, when people who are smoking, people who are having different destructive behaviors, those circuits inside the brain, those connections, again, coming back to neuroplasticity, those connections between the cells that eventually causes having that behavior are so strong. They have been having that behavior for a while. That's why those connections are so strong. If I want to help somebody or myself to go through the change, I support that person. It is all about losing those connections. I have to provide the situation for that person or myself if I want to get rid of that destructive behavior and to change my life for good, again, personally, professionally. I have to make those connections weaker by the time. So this is the first thing. But it doesn't work if you just work on weakening the connections. And maybe this is the time to bring it that neuroplasticity is not just about making new connections. Losing some connections is also a part of neuroplasticity, because neuroplasticity is about changing the shape of the brain. So if you want to establish new behavior, you have to get rid of that old behavior first. When those old behavior is going away, then you are able to make the new behavior. So you have to, for neuroplasticity, you have to work in two different areas, right? For gambling, for example, you have to make sure that behavior is getting weaker and weaker over the time, right? So those parts of the brain that are very strong in bringing that behavior are getting weaker and weaker. At the same time, you have to replace it with something else, because the job of the brain is to think about something. If you just without distracting it to work on something else, it starts craving for that reward. Gambling is about the reward. Smoking is about the reward. All of those distracting behavior is about the reward. When you do gambling, you win a little bit. That's a reward system. You get a present, you get a reward for doing gambling because you get money, right? That makes it stronger. Smoking, again, those nicotine receptors inside the brain that creates a feeling that is a good feeling inside the brain, coming with using opioid and everything. And then you have to replace it with some good behavior. If you want to support somebody, you have to make sure that person is in the way of neuroplasticity by getting rid of those strong connections. You have to, for example, for gambling, if you want to support the person who is gambling, you have to make sure the person is not doing that behavior. But you cannot just tell person that do not go to casino or don't do that. It's not working. It's not working. The way to weaken those connections is to distract person from that behavior. Distract the person or help the person to get distracted from that behavior by replacing it with something else. You want to go to casino this time? Distract the person, replace it with going to cinema, going to see family, going to some activities, something else, right? Then you're not going to casino or you're not doing that destructive behavior for a while, and then the brain starts losing those connections. Instead of that, you go to do something else, reading a book, playing something, doing some habit, and those connections get stronger and stronger. Brain is still getting that reward. You have to make sure that the brain is having its own reward. Otherwise, it starts craving for that reward and it comes back to that destructive behavior. So support is all about getting the person that motivation to make the new connection while you're distracting the person from that bad connection.
I can see why in thinking about neuroplasticity and forming a new habit or doing something new, and we hear in the science says if we do it in tiny steps, we're more likely to achieve it.
Yes.
I think what you've just said helps to understand that, because if the brain is craving to be wanting to
get some reward,
thank you. If we do something small, we're more likely to feel rewarded, we're more likely to see success. Is that in line with what you're saying around?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. But the brain's job is to, as I said, to think and to do something. And as simple as every small animal, like that little kitty or little doggy, goes on the ball for you, and then you treat him with something. This is no different than our brain. We're just a little bit higher in the ladder of the evolution, but we are just that animal. Like the brain craves for reward since we are a child, right? You cannot just get the reward out of the brain and then expect the brain to work properly. You have to replace it with some good reward. That's what rehabilitation is about. You go to learn new stuff in rehabilitation to just fill the brain with that reward thing, that chemicals. The most important one is dopamine inside the brain, which gives the brain that sense of pleasure. Otherwise, the brain craves for the pleasure, and if you are not putting in the right track, it goes to find the pleasure from the wrong way.
So, Dr. when we practice mindfulness, is that a reward for the brain?
Oh wow, it is a reward. It is a reward. It is such a huge reward for the brain. Well, mindfulness is a very I can say a small but at the same time very big word. It is not big. It is very simple. It is big in the terms of the meaning, but it is not something complicated. Mindfulness is just about observing. As simple as this. When we talk about mindfulness, it's about observing what you're thinking about every moment. So every moment, the moment that you wake up in the mornings, the moment till the moment that you go to bed, we human beings think about almost 70,000 thoughts. One day, in average, 70,000 thoughts come to your mind. And guess how many of them are negative? 95% of them are negative thoughts. That's why since the moment that we wake up, we start having that negative self-talk to ourselves, right? Only 5% of them are positive. And I tell you one more interesting point. From those negative thoughts that you think about, 99% of them never happen. Maybe and just maybe only 1% of them gonna happen to you. We spend 90, almost 5% of our time thinking about the things that never gonna happen, and they're all negative, and they will all cause negative emotion. It will cause a stress. It will cause negative feeling, blue, depressed, down, and that is actually again back to maybe 1,000 years ago when the human beings were in danger, they were living in cave. The brain was actually evolved to think about danger, all the negative things. That's what we thought about danger because we wanted to survive. Back then it was okay, but now no, we don't live in a cave. We don't need to think about all the negative thoughts, and that's where the news are based because they're all negative because that brings attention of the brain. Oh, I need to survive. Let's look at this news. Let's listen to the news. But when it comes to mindfulness and those 95% negative thoughts, mindfulness is working because that is observing the thought. The next time that a thought comes to my brain, I pause it. I think about it. I observe it. I start mindfulness. As I said, like as simple as observing it. This thought, which, as I said, 95% is negative, is it a fact or is it a fiction? Is it something that is actually happening? Or is it my assumption of if I go today to work and if my supervisor is going to be mad at me and if I may lose the job and I don't have any money to pay my mortgage and if all of this things, is it a fact or is it a fiction? I tell you, 95% of the time it's a fiction. If it is a fiction and I observe it through mindfulness, I have to pause it. It never happened before. It's not going to happen. I think about it when it happens. So it's not going to happen, right? Then imagine when you remove those 95% of negative thoughts from your life, how much room, extra room you have to focus on that 5% positive thought. You have huge amount of room to be focused on them, to be more productive, to be even like I said this, you will be a happy person during the day. You have lots of energy and time focused on that 5%. That's the mindfulness. Next time that you're at work and you're seeing something that causes you a bad feeling, just pause, observe it. That bad feeling should come from a bad thought in my brain, right? And I think about that thought, observe it. Is it true? It's not true. It happened 20 years ago, caused me a stress 20 years ago. Now I think about that bad event which just in the past and just everybody forgot about it. And just thinking about that brings me that stress and that stressful emotion again. Because brain actually doesn't differentiate between the thing that happened or the thing that's actually happening. Yeah. Whatever you think about it in the past, it thinks that it's happening to it again. That's why you feel again stressed and sad, like you felt 20 years ago. Stop it. It's not happening. So then you have the entire day to think about that 5% positive one. Yeah, that's the mindfulness actually is really helpful.
You mentioned before earlier in our conversation around mindset being that program for our brain. And I was thinking mindfulness like clearing the cache, isn't it? Like is it the cache or the cache, however you say it, for the computer, that browsing history,
exactly,
it out so it can move forward.
Yes, exactly. No, that's absolutely true. No, you're right. Yeah, that's actually a very good practice, and it's really difficult. I can say most of the people, when they want to start it, they want to practice mindfulness, and they start doing it because, as I said, our brain has been trained like, for such a long time to think about the negative aspect of the life. That's those self-talk, those negative self-talk during the day. And when you pause it, it's a little bit difficult, and then your brain again automatically switches to the again negative. But more again coming to practicing, more practice, and then you feel it just like a routine in your life. Next time the bad thoughts come, automatically your brain switches to positive and think about, is it happening now? Or did that happen like 20 years ago? Forget about it. Is it happening now? Or is it going to happen in future or never happens in future? Forget about it. So this is going to be a routine in your life. And I assure you, you will be a much happier person because you just reduce the amount of stress in your life by 95%.
Thank you so much, Sherry. I really enjoyed this conversation with you today. I learned so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just reinforced a lot of that, added weight to that understanding. Perhaps some simple practices that can be so powerful in how we show up, how we see the world, even just amazing.
You're right. You're right.
Sherry, as we come to the end of this conversation, besides your own wonderful work that we will be sharing in the show notes today, we would love to hear from you if there's any books or podcasts or TED Talks that you would like to share that would be of value to our listeners today if they wanted to learn more.
Sure, definitely. My pleasure. I have a few videos. If you're interested in finding my books, I have a few books for grown-ups and also for kids, because I also like to bring the science to the kids to understand how their brain, how their behavior are happening. So in the language that they can understand, I have a few books published for kids and different areas. You can find them on Amazon. And also I have a few books for in the different areas of, I guess, neuroscience and psychology. Latest one is that I published a couple of months ago. You can find it in Amazon, and this is about the power of the mindset to shape the life in a fulfilled and happy life for people, for individuals. You can find it online, or people can find it online. Also, they can order it if they want to have the hard copy. These are there. I have lots of publications which are available. Again, most of them you can find you can get the PDF. Some of them you have to go to those journals. So these are the research that I've done on the brain, the different aspects of the brain, aging of the brain, or a brain during disease situations such as Alzheimer's disease. Again, the list of them is available most of them are available in Google Scholar. I have some videos that I practically try to bring the science to the area of the psychology and to the public speaking, so you can see what is again happening inside the brain in a very simple way. You can find them in LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel, and then people can find them in YouTube channel. And yes, if you want to connect me, they can just go to my website, which is www.sherrymaj.com. So they can find out what services I can provide and lots of things about. I have also a blog there that I bring the newest, the latest scientific information and data about the brain. They can just go and read them easily for free. So yes, there are lots of things that I try to through them, try to connect the neuroscience to the actual personal life in the community.
Thank you so much.
We will put all of those links into the show notes as well, so that people can follow on with you, because I'm sure that there'll be a lot of people really wanting to touch base with you. So we'll put your LinkedIn and your website in there too, and link to some of your reports. So thank you so much for that. I've just got one more question just to ask you.
Definitely.
We do this with all of our guests, and we really have been curious about people's own favourite wellbeing practices. Just wondering, do you have a favourite that you might like to share with our listeners today? And we'll put that in the show notes as well.
I surely do. Yes. And that practice is, as I said, mindfulness. Everything is starting with mindfulness. Mindfulness and observing the thing. Everything, even that mindfulness, starts with awareness. When you want to change something, and you find something that is not good for you, you want to change it to something better for your life, personal, professional, it starts with awareness. You have to be aware of the need for change. So don't have that, you don't realize that for change, none of those practices are going to work for you. So when I want to change something, I need to know first that I need to change this behavior. For example, I have a behavior at workplace, I have a behavior at family, and the moment that I realize that I need to change, so if you, for any of the audiences, if they get to that point, That is the start. That's a very good news. For me, that's the most important part. So I'm aware that change. I am aware of that change. I need to change it to something else because that's not serving me the best. Now I have to find something that's serving me the best. This is the awareness. Now, coming to the strategy and practicalities, now the practice is mindfulness. When I need to change something, the next step is to bring that change to the practical set of my brain. And that comes with working that software that I told you, that software of the mindset. Yeah. Now I think that, okay, for example, I need to change my behavior of waking up late in the morning because I really love my bed, especially in the warm, but in the winter, cold winter days. But I really know that I have to do some exercise in the morning, right? So that late sleeping and not having exercise doesn't serve me anymore. I have to change it to something else, right? Because I'm aware of it. If I don't do that, I will get high blood pressure. I will get like unhealthy lifestyle, blah, blah, blah. So that is the awareness. Now I have to change it through the mindfulness. Next, just the phone, I start snoozing and I say, oh, it's 6 a.m. I don't want to wake up. Then I stop. This is the mindfulness. And I stop. And I said, now I have to use mindfulness. Now I have to observe this action that I'm going to do and just touch it and silence it. This is the action. I observe it. Pause. Don't do that. Is it right? Is it wrong? It is not right. It's not going to serve me. Then I pause it. This is the mindfulness, right? I pause it. Then when I pause it, then I decide to not going for that bad behavior or not healthy behavior anymore. Yeah. I'm starting to losing those connections. And then I push myself. It's hard, but I push myself to get up and wake up and go to that exercise doing it. Again, next morning it's going to happen. 2 days. Not happening overnight. Next morning is going to happen again. Next morning it is better, but it's still going to happen again. I have to stick to it for a longer period of time. So longer story short, my best practice is mindfulness, observing your thought after having that need of change, observing your thought. And if I may just give you one more practical strategy, is the game of fact or fiction. Always play. Make it a routine for your brain. Always play fact or fiction in your mind, no matter what's happening. Workplace, home place. Fact or fiction. It is happening. Is it a fact? Is it a fiction? Something from past is a fiction. Something gonna happen in future is a fiction. This is going to happen in the present, and I'm sure it's happening. This is a fact. Now I focus on it. So mindfulness, fact and fiction. These two games are really working for us.
Oh, they are fantastic. I can't wait to put those in the show notes for everybody. But thank you so much, Cherie. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you. I wish we could talk for longer.
No, I really enjoyed being with you guys and speaking, learning a lot from you. So thank you so much. Enjoy the coming weekend ahead.
Yeah,
thank you.
Take care.
Wow, what a conversation, Lisa.
I know, there was just so much in it, and my mind was going crazy just thinking about all those connections that you make and how that actually impacts. And my mind went straight to our young learners being able to make those synapses connect, to be able to transfer that knowledge straight away so it becomes a habit and then it becomes part of who you are. That was just amazing, that part. What was the highlight for you?
I really liked the simpleness of understanding that, I liked how Cherie put put mindset into perspective of thinking of it as a software for the brain. Yeah, a program. Yeah. And I immediately thought of it differently. Like, just immediately thought, yes, makes so much sense. I'm not that technical when it comes to computers and things like that. But it helped me understand that, yes, that is software. And then I like when we thought about the mindfulness and how that if we're wanting to build new pathways, mindfulness helps us make space for that.
Yeah, and I always liken it to a pause. And I think what she talked about, the emotional intelligence, but she broke that up a little bit more. So the emotion, observing what is that emotion, but using the intelligence of the brain to actually work out what's the best thing for us to do. So how do we, if we're angry, and what is it that's happening, why, and making those intelligent choices. And I thought that was really good too, which then has that element of the mindfulness in regards to the awareness, being a little bit more aware, observing, and then reacting. Not reacting like you might do with emotion, you're just exploding.
I can see how understanding our brain better empowers us to move forward. It empowers us to, if I put it into a positive psychology lens, understanding that empowers me to feel better, have that positive emotion. It helps me be more engaged with the things that I'm applying myself to. Helps with relationships, because if I understand myself, I understand you, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So that whole meaning piece fits in there somewhere. Accomplishment, definitely, because we're just understanding ourselves more strategically, and
Totally.
incredible things can happen from that.
Yeah. And I think that sense of that, the dopamine, and really building that positivity again and amplifying it, I guess, it's just so important. And this is only a brand new field, really. So can you imagine in the next 10 years what we can do? And if we're teaching this to our people, it has to be of benefit of others. So exciting. What a wonderful conversation, hey?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. All right.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
And thank you for listening to the Imperfect Us podcast. As always, we are extremely grateful to our executive producer, Brenton Ainsworth, for helping us to put this episode together. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with someone you care about, and we would be grateful if you could rate this podcast on iTunes. To continue the conversation and see what we're up to, you can connect with us on LinkedIn. Just search for Imperfect Us. Bye for now.